Good day, Junior Techies, and welcome to this video where we're going to be looking at worksheet question 3 on population ecology. My name is Mr. P. I'm going to be taking you through this video and other videos in this section, and hopefully we're going to build on your understanding within population ecology so that you are well prepared for your final assessment at the end of the year. Right, so if you have the worksheet in front of you, you'll have a look at question 3, and you'll see that this question deals with a graph to start with. I always tell my students, make sure you get good context from the information that you're given before you look at the questions, so that the questions become just so much easier when we try and answer them after looking at the graph. So here you can see we have a graph that represents changes in population size of kudu and wild dogs in a specific closed habitat over a 35-year period. Why we say closed habitat is because we want to mitigate or eliminate the possibility of emigration and immigration within these populations. So we say this is a closed system. Okay, so over here you'll see that I have just made a little bit of sense of the graph currently. So you can see as the population of kudu increases, so does the population of wild dogs. The numbers increase together. We get to 1987, and we've got a decrease in the number of kudu and wild dogs as well. So we see the two graphs sort of following each other's pattern as we move from 1980 to 2015. You'll see that's the duration of this experiment. You'll see population size is measured in hundreds. So we'll see our scale from 1 to 7. Each one of those digits represents 100 in the population. So this becomes a little bit important later when we actually have to read values off the graph or do calculations. So it's important to make note of these little things when looking at the scale, particularly the units. Right, so you see I've just made a note of exactly when these measurements were taken. They were taken at very specific points throughout the study from 1980 to 2015. You'll see here that on the graph there is a point A or level A that is made known to us over there. What do you think this represents in the graph? You'll see that at no point do the population's numbers exceed this dotted line. So this automatically tells me that what we're looking at here is the environmental carrying capacity of the environment in which we find both the kudu and the wild dogs. You'll see here that looking at the questions, they've given us that label A for a very specific reason if we move down the questions. But let's look at question 3.1 first. Identify the relationship that is shown in the graph. So because the one and the other follow each other through the period 1980 to 2015, this is a very, very good example of a predator-prey relationship within an environment, where as the number of prey increase, so do the number of predator. And as the prey decrease in number, so the number of predator decrease as well, because obviously there's now not enough food available for them. If we look at point A, that is now referred to in question 3.2, you'll see that the line, as before, does in fact represent carrying capacity of this environment. Question 3.3, explain the possible consequence for the wild dogs in this habitat if the number of kudu exceed 700. So it's important now for us to make a note that if the number of kudu exceed 700, it also exceeds the carrying capacity of this environment. So when we're looking to explain the consequence, we need to make note of that. Question 3.3 will therefore be answered by saying that, okay, if the number of prey increase, so will the number of wild dog, which depend on the kudu for food. If we have the number of kudu exceeding the carrying capacity, When the number of kudu decrease because there are limited resources, there's to say that the number of wild dog will decrease as well. So a good answer here, wild dog numbers will increase because there will be an increased amount of food, but the wild dog numbers will then decrease thereafter because the number of kudu will decrease because of limited resources, because now those numbers have pushed through the ceiling of that carrying capacity of the environment for these specific populations. If we look at question 3.4, calculate the percentage increase in the wild dog population from 1980 to 2001. Now we're looking at the wild dog population, so it's important not to confuse the two graphs with each other. So we need to make sure we're working with the right one. So now we're going to take the two readings quickly over there. So you'll see I've made two little blue lines to make sure I can read off the population size on the y-axis there. The first one, because of my scale, I have 50 and 275 individuals in these populations. If we look at the percentage increase that it's asking me to calculate, I need to take the final number, subtract the initial number, divided by the initial number, and multiply by 100. What this is going to do is give me the percentage increase in my population. And you'll see that that works out to being a 450% increase for the population of wild dog from the year 1980 to the year 2001. In question 3.5, describe the trend for the kudu population from 1987 to 2015. Now the question asks for a description, so I only need to describe what the graph is telling me about the kudu population from 1987 to 2015. So I can start my question or start my answer by referring to what the graph is actually showing me. And you'll see what I've done there is I have highlighted the change in the population numbers between 1987 and 2015. You'll see at first we're going to have the population of kudu decreasing between 1987 and 1994. Between 1994 and 2008, we have an increase in the numbers of kudu, and thereafter 2008 the numbers decrease again. And that is how we would describe the trend for the kudu population from 1987 to 2015. Thank you so much for joining me, Junior Tikkies. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's helped you better understand graphs and how to analyze graphs, and then how to answer the specific questions that we could expect from a big question like this that does deal with a graph. If you haven't yet, please get your hands on the worksheet and worksheet memo, as well as theory booklets on this section to help you better prepare for your final exam. Thanks for joining me, Junior Tikkies. I do hope to see you again.